From censored files to clear evidence, this is Redacted Realms.
The morgue's chill seeped into my bones as I watched my mother's body twitch on the cold steel table. The scent of formaldehyde and something else, something metallic and sweet, hung thick in the air. Then her eyes snapped open. Not the vacant stare of death, but a sharp, intelligent focus that locked onto mine. Her fingers, still stiff with rigor mortis, curled around my wrist with impossible strength. She didn't speak, but her lips formed 3 silent words that I felt more than heard. The morgue attendant found me hours later, my skin clammy with cold sweat, still frozen in that same spot. They told me it was a post-mortem muscle spasm, a trick of the light, a child's traumatized imagination. But 23 years later, when she died the second time, I finally understood what those silent words meant. The second time it happened, I was 32, staring at a birth certificate with a name I'd never seen before. That's when the truth hit me. The woman I buried wasn't my mother. The air grew thick with the scent of old paper and something metallic, like forgotten secrets. My fingers went numb against the cold, sticky surface of the document as a whisper of memory brushed past. Warm cookies, a bright smile, alive. For Sarah Miller, childhood was a sensory tapestry woven from her mother Evelyn's lemon verbena perfume and the warm laughter that filled their Austin home. Evelyn was Sarah's entire world, a creative soul who transformed dreary rain into magical fort-building adventures. But beneath that perfect domestic surface, something else lingered in the air. A faint, metallic scent would sometimes cut through the lemon verbena, though Sarah wouldn't understand why until decades later. Sarah was my closest confidant. We'd lose entire nights to conversation. She possessed this incandescent glow. It drew people like moths to a flame. John, Sarah's father, was a reserved civil engineer who built his life on methodical precision. His love for Evelyn was steady and reliable, a foundation poured with quiet devotion. But stability can mask what lies beneath the surface, waiting to crack through. In their calm home, the scent of old paper and dust clung to every corner, a silent witness. For 12 years, Sarah never questioned it. Then, on her birthday, everything changed. Her world dissolved into shaky, somber stills. The final image burned into her mind. A stark, sterile hospital room. The sterile scent of antiseptic and the cold, metallic touch of the bed rail were her first real memories. Evelyn's diagnosis was a merciless, fast-moving cancer, giving us months instead of years. Sarah's reality fractured around her, the sterile hospital air thick with impending loss. In a desperate vigil, she slept on a cot beside her mother's bed, listening to the rasp of labored breathing. The antiseptic scent couldn't mask the deeper smell of decay that now haunted the space between them. I read to her until the end, her final words. My brave girl, never lose your spark. Then silence. In the suffocating aftermath of her passing, John's spirit fractured. The familiar scent of old paper and lavender in the room soured, replaced by the faint, metallic tang of grief. Something fundamental within him had shifted, leaving only a hollow, cold space where warmth once resided. He withdrew into a cold, distant shell. 6 months later, he sold the Austin house and moved them to a sterile Houston condo. He boxed up nearly all of Evelyn's belongings, the cardboard smelling faintly of dust and old paper. He claimed it was too painful to keep them, his voice flat and hollow. It felt like he was trying to scrub her from existence. He'd erupt if I played her songs, a fury that clung to the air like damp. Every photograph vanished from the walls, leaving only pale ghosts of rectangles in the paint. The scent of old paper and dust settled where her memory used to be. I told myself grief had just fractured him into a different, colder shape. Sarah built a light, but a permanent shadow clung to her. A therapist called it arrested grief, an emotional paralysis from that hospital room she could never escape. At 32, the past resurfaced violently when her father, John, suffered a severe stroke. The air in her apartment grew heavy with the scent of antiseptic and old dread, as if the walls themselves remembered. A primal unease took hold, whispering that some wounds never heal, they only wait. While clearing out his Houston condo, she discovered a locked metal box tucked deep in his closet. The key was on his key ring, labeled storage. It felt deliberately placed. Inside, no love letters or cherished mementos, only the faint scent of ozone and damp paper. Her fingers traced the cold, sticky interior lining as a distant scratching sound echoed from the walls. Just a stack of bank statements and a post office box rental in El Paso. And then, a single, folded birth certificate. The name on it, Eleanor Marie Vance, born the same date, at the same hospital, with the same parents as Evelyn Marie Miller. My mother had a twin sister. The revelation struck like a physical blow. Why would my father conceal this? Why would she never speak of her? The air in my childhood home now tastes of old paper and deliberate omission. Every memory I have feels suddenly porous, hiding a truth that was always there, waiting in the silence. Sarah began to dig through online archives and newspaper clippings, her fingers tracing the digital dust of forgotten stories. A grainy image emerged from a 1995 El Paso paper, a small article about a missing local woman named Eleanor Vance. The sparse police records described her only as a free spirit, a phrase that felt both poetic and ominously incomplete. The archive's stale air carried the scent of decaying ink and unanswered questions. She was an artist in El Paso, working odd jobs, with a minor arrest record for protest-related charges. Then, in 1995, she vanished without a trace. Sarah. She disappeared a year before my parents ever met. Her absence became a hollow space in the timeline, a void that preceded my own existence. I contacted the El Paso Police Department. The detective who handled the case had retired, but he remembered every detail. His voice grew quiet, weighted by years of unsolved mysteries. He said the strangest part wasn't the disappearance itself, it was who reported it. A friend filed the report. Her own family never did. The family dismissed her as merely traveling, silencing every question. With the birth certificate clutched in her hand, Sarah confronted her partially paralyzed father. The air grew heavy with the scent of antiseptic and old paper. Her voice cracked as she demanded, "Who is Eleanor, Dad? Why did you hide her?" John's words came thick and slurred, frantic with terror. "No, not your secret, not yours." Sarah's voice cut through the damp air, sharp with confusion and dawning fear. "Not my secret? Then whose?" John's voice broke, a single tear tracing his cheek. "She made me promise. For you." The air grew thick with the scent of ozone and old rock. Sarah's mind raced, pieces clicking into place with a dreadful finality. A cold, damp dread settled in the room. The only sound, the frantic whisper of her own thoughts. Visuals overlapped. Photos of Evelyn and the single known photo of Eleanor side by side. They are identical. The retired detective, once intrigued by Sarah's call, did his own digging.
He found an old acquaintance of Eleanor's, and he called Sarah with a bombshell. In the privacy-distorted phone call, a friend described Eleanor as chaotic yet kind-hearted. She was also deeply, obsessively in love. Her affection was fixed on a quiet engineer from Austin, a man she'd met at a professional conference. Her friend's voice held a note of unease when recounting this detail, as if the very memory carried a faint, metallic scent. His name was John. The recognition struck her like a physical blow.
Sarah. No, John Miller was dating Eleanor Vance. But Eleanor was an enigma. Her mind a compass pointing toward uncharted territories. Talk of Canadian wilderness, communal living, anything but the settled future John had meticulously planned. The scent of damp earth and ozone clung to her words, as if she'd already begun to dissolve from the life they built. Then, with the suddenness of a snuffed candle, she was simply gone. No note, no trace, just the hollow echo of her absence and the sticky residue of unanswered questions. Not long after, John arrived in Austin with Evelyn, her identical twin, the stable sister, the gentle one, the one who truly desired the white picket fence, who told everyone they'd just met. He claimed Evelyn was from California. He systematically cut her off from her past, which meant severing anyone who knew about Eleanor. The air in Sarah's apartment grew thick with the scent of old paper and dust as she paced, the floorboards groaning under her weight. Armed with this chilling revelation, a cold knot tightening in her stomach, she turned to confront her father. The air grew heavy with unsaid words, thick with the scent of old secrets and ozone. Sarah's voice was a calm, deadly whisper, cutting through the stillness. "You were dating Eleanor. She disappeared." The words hung in the damp air, sticky with implication. "And you just switched twins?" Her breath hitched. "Did she even have cancer, Dad? Or did Eleanor have cancer? Which one did I bury?" John's voice broke, words tumbling out in a desperate flood. "Loved her. Both." Eleanor was fire. His final whisper was a raw wound. But she left. The note simply stated, she was gone. Evelyn was utterly heartbroken. We found a strange comfort in our shared grief. Then, she discovered Eleanor's final note. She claimed she was sick, dying, and utterly alone. The air in the room grew thick with the scent of ozone and decay, a cold, damp chill seeping into the walls. Her only request was a desperate plea to see her sister one last time. A faint, rhythmic scratching echoed from somewhere unseen, making his breath hitch in his throat. One final time. John's voice was a low rasp in the heavy quiet. We went. She was fragile. A long pause stretched, filled only by the scent of old paper and damp earth. But the spark, it was Eleanor's spark. Evelyn remained behind to care for her. But then something shifted. A metallic scent, like old pennies, lingered in the air. They traded places. For the last month, it hasn't been her, so you could know her. So Eleanor could know you. Sarah's voice was a fragile whisper in the oppressive stillness. What are you saying? John's words fell like stones into a dark well. The woman who died was Eleanor. Your mother came home. Evelyn became your mother. She loved you.
More than anything, she was terrified. That if you knew, you'd think her love was a lie. We buried Eleanor as Evelyn to protect you, to give you a mother. The confession hung in the air, thick and metallic like the scent of cold earth. A deep, silent pressure built in her chest, squeezing the air from her lungs. The truth, finally spoken, felt less like a revelation and more like a tomb-sealing shut. The fury had evaporated, leaving only a profound, staggering confusion. This was no crime of passion, but a tragedy born from it. A dying mother's desperate wish to know her daughter, a grieving sister's sacrifice to become her, and a man trapped between two loves, preserving a fragile, terrifying peace. As I stare at this childhood photo of Evelyn and me, a metallic taste of iron coats my tongue. The woman who raised me was my aunt. The woman whose hand I held as she died was my biological mother.
Both loved me, but their affection feels like damp wool clinging to my skin.
They built my life on a foundation of lies so vast, I can no longer distinguish which memories are real. The headstone in Austin read, Evelyn Miller, its granite surface cold to the touch.
A scent of damp earth and ozone clung to the air as Sarah stood before it. Her breath hitched, the question forming not just in her mind but in the very stillness around her. Who do I mourn here? She whispered, the words swallowed by the gathering dark. The mother I remember? Or the stranger who gave me birth? The final shot holds on Sarah at the graveside, the wind lashing her hair like spectral fingers. Her eyes are a tempest of unspeakable grief and a terrifying, newfound knowledge. She speaks, her voice barely a whisper over the gale, carrying the scent of wet earth and decay. They told me the secret wasn't mine to keep, but now that I know it, whose is it, and how do you ever give it back? Have you ever uncovered a family secret that shattered your reality? Share your haunting experience below.